and running. Welcome, everybody. We're here on recruiting strategies for into businesses that is very important for the growth of every business out there nowadays. And my guest joining me today is Anthony, CEO of TT Group, leader in turning recruiting strategy into business outcomes. Dig into this with him. And I wanted to kind of get in not just the recruiting strategies. You have a second part of your business that I kind of stood out to me, M&A, that is very interesting to me because I haven't heard a lot about it, or the people I have spoken to in the past haven't really been into that as much. So what I know you have a team that does this and works on everything for it. So can you give us kind of a rundown of what that is?
Sure. Well, first of all, Derek, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I appreciate the invitation. I always welcome the opportunity to talk about emerging business and growth, etc. So thank you for the invitation. I think the first place to start is I am not an M&A person, nor am I an HR consultant. I'm a recruiter at heart. But as the business grew and evolved, we quickly realized that there were additional services that our firm could offer that were in those two categories. So I think the job of any founder or CEO is to hire people much smarter than you and to get out of their way and let them do their job. So as we identified these requirements and these needs from our prospective clients, I started to build a team in those two categories: HR consulting from a fractional outsourced perspective, and then an M&A advisory group that focused on both sell side transactions and buy side transactions. And I think one of the unique things about our M&A advisory offering is we come at it from a people, systems, and process perspective. I think most people, when they think M&A, they think these huge billion-dollar publicly traded IPOs and transactions that happen in our world, and nothing against the publicly traded companies. In our world, the SEC is a four-letter word. We want to play in that lower middle market. We have two solutions: the $1 to $12 million in gross transaction, and then kind of $12 to $250 million transaction, with the majority of our clients in that $2 to $12 million EBITDA range. So that's kind of a little overview on our M&A function and kind of how the solution became viable for us.
Okay. I mean, and I think when looking, like you said, being the CEO of the company, looking at the opportunities that you have in front of you and being able to, like you said, get smarter people in there to be able to help you maximize the efforts that you can put forward.
Yes.
So what are some of the things in recruiting and staffing that you do differently than your competitors that make you successful?
Sure. First of all, we don't, from a recruiting perspective, we kind of have two solutions in the recruiting space. We can react to a client calling us and saying, "Hey, Anthony, I need an accountant. Can you find one for us?" That would be what we call a reactionary recruit. And then we also have proactive recruits, where we understand enough about our client's industry vertical, and we know the hiring trends enough in that industry vertical to know when they need a certain type of skill set. So if I use tax as an example, we know that there's two really busy seasons in tax. One would be the one that everybody knows, January 1st through to April 15, when we all have to file our taxes. But then there's the extension deadlines that happen on September and October 15. So what we do for a proactive recruit is we will stock up on tax accountants 2 months before those busy seasons. So we will go out to all of the CPA firms and say, "We've got 20 tax accountants available. We know you hire in this industry at this time. We're well versed in your industry enough to know that." And so clients will then proactively hire those candidates from us. So it's not just, I think sometimes people think recruiters as, oh, they ring, they give you a job order and you try to fill the role. No, we take it a step further. Yes, we do that, but we take it a step further and proactively market our candidates to certain industries at certain times as well.
This is very true. Um, so we talked about this before. Trust is a pillar of recruiting. How do you build that high high risk deals with your clients and with the people that you bring on? to recruit from.
Sorry, can you what do you mean exactly by that question? Can you just repeat that?
Well, like we had talked before about, you rather go down and shake someone's
Oh
hand
yes,
and get that trust and get that, hands-on understanding, have that true bond. And that's something that I kind of pulled from our conversation
yes,
is, trust is a big pillar of recruiting and
absolutely.
having the people that want to come work for you and the companies that keep giving you business because they trust you.
Absolutely. So I think that in the world, see, I grew up in the internet boom. I'm showing my age here, where we had dial-up internet was just coming online, and I think that in that time period, everything was not automated. It was physically. I mean, I think my first recruiting job, I was given the yellow pages and a cell phone, and said, "We'll talk to you in 3 months and tell you if you'll keep your job." And what that did, it was this baptism by fire, but it taught me how to solution sell. It taught me how to first build a relationship, understand what the pain point is that the client was experiencing, and then generate a solution to solve the pain. Whereas I think these days, the next generation down, maybe even two generations down now, AI and automation is a significant hot topic. It's a trending industry topic right now in every field. And I think that, quite quite soon, a lot of our producers are going to start to turn to AI. I mean, ChatGTP is writing emails for people. I write my own emails, and people will say to me, Anthony, can you help me word this email, or I'm going to put it through ChatGTP, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So I think we're starting to lose touch with the human element of what we do in a sales process when we're selling a solution to a client, because we're so quick to go to automation or AI. Now, is there a place for AI and automation? Yes, I do. I think there's going to be a place because it's a fantastic emerging technology. But it is never going to replace the human aspect of building that relationship, getting in the car, getting on the plane, and going meeting your client in person. I think also another really good analogy of how I think automation has really started to degrade our services would be like autocorrect on an email or a paper you're writing for school. We would have to learn to spell the really difficult word, and you just learn through repetition. Now you can type it wrong, and before you've even finished typing your word, Microsoft Word, your email has already corrected it for you. So you've never had to learn what it is. It's the same for relationship building and AI. We don't need to learn the old school relationship build now because we've got technology that will do it for us. I think when we first spoke, Derek, I gave a vinyl records analogy. Yes,
Yes.
vinyl records became really popular. There was like a renaissance in vinyl records again until they realized they couldn't have 100 playlists, 100 songs on a playlist because they couldn't compress the file big enough. Now we have people coming back to the way it used to be, and I think that there's going to be a place where the old school relationship builders, it's going to be a renaissance again away from automation to where they want to talk to a real person. And I know it's really cliche for me to say this, but HR, right? That's what the industry I'm in, HR. The first word in HR, Derek, what does the H stand for?
Human.
It's never going to remove the human aspect of what we do. And we're in a people mover role. People want to talk to people. And that's kind of how I would describe it to you.
And that's what, when we did have the conversation, it was refreshing to hear the human aspect that you kept bringing to the forefront is, I rather go and have that conversation. I rather be in front of the individual, have that conversation. And that was, again, very refreshing instead of leaning on other technologies and AI and so forth that you just mentioned. So, moving on to other things that I think are important, counter offers, retention, and real cost of turnover. Are you seeing a lot of that now with the trends of people and the generation of, wanting to have, you know, 4-day work weeks and things like that? Is that something that you're seeing as an issue?
Not so much the 4-day work week. I think hybrid and remote work is still a topic. I think there's a national push away from hybrid and remote work to more in-office type collaboration. Me personally, our entire company is 100% remote. And you could ask any member of our leadership team. We've had to ask people to log off in the evening. We have overproduction. We have the ability to manage keystrokes. Like, we know when people are logged in and typing on their keyboard, and we've only ever had to use it to stop people from working more hours, never from a "you're not working" perspective. And so I think that a lot of our staff, with 18 of them across 2 states, they walk out of their office and they walk into the kitchen, they make dinner for their family, they're eating an hour and a half early because they don't have travel time. Quite often they're back at their desk after dinner finishing off a few emails. And we've had to make people take PTO. One of the benefits that TTG offers as a company is we have a paid floating holiday. We wanted to call it a family day, but quickly recognized that not everybody has children, and maybe the word family wasn't the best descriptive word. We kind of just talked about it being a floating holiday where we encourage people to completely disconnect. And it's paid by the company. It's in addition to we have a generous PTO policy. It was just so that we had and we also pay for a birthday day off where they have their birthday off. They can use it within 7 days, and they usually take a Friday or a Monday, so they have a long weekend. So we really wanted to encourage this, work hard, play hard mentality. And we've never had an issue. And part of it is, Derek, we've hired the right people. And when you hire the right people, the trust is there. And so we have never really had that issue yet. In terms of your initial question about counteroffers and lost production, counteroffers have been an issue in executive search for a very, very long time. And it's more pronounced when you're headhunting than when you have a candidate that's obviously unemployed, because there's no counteroffer if they're unemployed. So when you're targeting a high-producing, a well-engaged, a well-paid candidate that wasn't really looking, but you sound compelling, so they'll have a conversation with you on the phone, you always risk their company realizing it's easier to pay them an extra $10,000 to stay than to pay $25,000 to another recruiter to backfill the role. So quite often what we do in these conversations, we have a pre-qualification process we go through with every candidate that's about to get an offer. This is pre-offer. It's called our pre-close process, where we talk about why you never ever accept a counteroffer. And we've got statistics. I think it's something like 85% of candidates that accept a counteroffer are no longer employed within a year of accepting the counteroffer. In addition to that, we tell candidates, you resigned, you quit. You told your employer, I'm done, because you accepted an offer in order to resign. You're always going to be known as the candidate that quit. So whatever track you thought you were on in the business in terms of upward mobility, take it, scrunch in a little ball, and throw it over your shoulder in the weight pacer basket, right? Because they're always going to wonder, are you going to quit one day? Another example we give candidates that are thinking about this process is, okay, you accept the counter offer, you get a $10,000 increase. Now, if you were due for a pay rise in 3 months' time, because that's just the cycle of pay rises, what do you think your company's going to say to you? We just gave you 10 grand, you just got your pay rise. Yep. So really, they're just paying for the pay rise. I mean, I've got 100 of these examples where I could give you on a podcast on why you never accept a counteroffer, and there are horror stories. We've told candidates of when they've accepted it and they've trained their replacement. They didn't realize they were training their replacement, and then they were fired 6 weeks later. Particularly in states that have at-will employment, right, where you can fire anybody that's not a protected federal classification for any reason. You just don't like the way their hair looks today. Okay, see you later, right? So, in that sort of world, we try to advise. Now, we usually get through the counteroffer most of the time. I won't say every time. We've had some ridiculous counteroffers, like $25,000, $30,000 over offer. And, again, in those situations, we say to the candidate, it takes for you to quit to get a $30,000 raise. Do you have to quit every year before your pay rise? And we have a little bit of a laugh about it. And quite often these candidates, they don't realize, they never think about it this way. So those are just some examples of we pre-close a candidate with the counteroffer argument before they even get to the offer stage. In terms of lost production, I think statistics have changed since COVID on what lost production was like. it's usually 3 to 4 times salary is what it used to be, around what not having someone in the seat to fill the role. But I think the biggest struggle we're having right now, Derek, is not necessarily counteroffer, it's time to fill. Time to fill, and a client taking too long to make a decision is a absolute killer. Time kills all deals. And we had a recent engagement where we presented a candidate at, I think it was $80,000. It was a 6-week interview process. By the time they got to offer with our client, they had 2 other offers at 75 grand. So now the candidate's like, well, I'm no longer wanting 60,000. My client's like, we're ready to make an offer, Anthony. We're really excited. We want to give your candidate exactly what they want, $60,000. Here we go. And we have to tell the client, well, they don't want 60 grand anymore. And they say, well, how dare you, Anthony? You submitted them at 60. And I'm like, they have 2 other offers at 75. You would have got them at 63 weeks ago. So, these are conversations we're having, kind of like the counteroffer at the pre-close before the offer's made. We have this conversation with our clients at the order taking stage, before candidates are even presented. So we have this conversation about how, yes, we may not be able to change your interview process, right? But this is the risk you take. Are you willing to pay not just the $15,000 in premium from 60 to 75 in this example, but it's going to cost you 25% of 15 grand on top of your fee, because now the candidate's worth more money. So are you willing to pay $20,000 more potentially, or 20, whatever the math is, or just, yes, you can still do 4 rounds, but do 2 a week for 2 weeks instead of 1 a week for 4 weeks. So those are discussions we have at the order taking stage, before we've even presented a candidate through the first round.
Yeah, because I found that, managers are so busy, and getting to making time to do that interview and not being prepared to have that conversation up front, say, we need to get this wrapped up in X amount of time. Is it possible
Yes.
for you to do that? And that's the one thing, is having these conversations and being very upfront with them and saying, hey, I want to bring you the best client uh, that you will ever find, and they'll have all the quirks that you're looking for and all the different technologies you're looking for. But if you wait, someone else is going to be wanting him or her to work for them as well. And they're
Yes.
going to say, how much did they offer you? And they're going to say, okay, I'll offer you more than that, because they're like, I want you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's part of why we have so much repeat business, Derek, is we are comfortable enough in our understanding of recruitment and talent to be able to say no to our clients, say you got to try it this way. And we're comfortable losing business when we have clients that aren't educated and want the best for their staff. And so, I think that honesty and that being authentic is really what keeps those clients coming back to us in not just repeat business with their business, but we get a lot of referral. Hey, Anthony, we had a great experience with your recruiting team. We know another company, could be a construction company, and they need a controller. We've asked them to give you a call. And we get that because they're going to get blunt honesty and the truth from us every single time.
And I mean, it takes all the guesswork out of should I, would I, how, all those different things that are very important to have, and know that when I submit somebody, you're going to get that feedback immediately. It's not going to
Yes.
be, like you said, 6 weeks later. It's not going to be, something ridiculous, because you've had the conversation. They know what your standards are. They know the type of people you're going to get anyway, because you do the screening process. You know what they're available to do and what they have to offer. And all of those things, I think, when I was doing it as well, is, the face-to-face conversations with the hiring manager. What does your schedule look like for the next 3 weeks? If I bring you 3 clients, can you interview 1 a week?
Yeah.
Or can you do all 3 of them in 1 week? What is your availability? If you have such a tight timeline right now, I don't want to break up your work schedule trying to get these people in. We need to make sure that we have open communication, and you're available.
Yep.
So it's always been that way. And I think, and that's, again, when we had this conversation, it was refreshing for you to say, again, I will get in the car, drive down the street, and shake your hand and have that conversation with you, because we both will know who each other are and how we work.
Yes, absolutely. And that's another reason why we built a fractional HR consulting practice too. In those situations where it is a long lead time to hire, that's actually a cultural issue. It could be an operational issue. And so we have a solution to fix that. So quite often our recruiters are in there, oh my gosh, we can't get this candidate hired. Well, all we're hearing is our consulting practice is hearing we need to get in there and fix their talent acquisition system. And so it's an easy cross-sell to another department to solve that issue. And that's how we built the consulting practice. Was all of the issues that our recruiters faced trying to get a deal closed were systemic operational challenges in the client's business. And so we built solutions around what our recruiters were experienced, and now we became their fractional support, helping build their talent acquisition process. And again, another revenue stream for TTG, but the client saw us as a true partner. We will fill every role. We'll fill it 100 times a year, and you'll pay us a fee 100 times a year. But we don't want to do business like that. We want to fill it once, but our consulting practice will be the solution to make sure we only fill it once. Because quite often it's not the candidate that has the issue, it's an operational challenge. And so that's where the consulting practice was born, out of those issues that we heard during the order taking with our recruiters.
Yes, it's I think the HR aspect of it has always been the hardest part of dealing with getting someone onboarded or, into the process and everything, and having those systems in place and be able to help them with those systems because they need help is very, very responsible for us as a group to be successful, because we're all
Yeah.
going to win at the end of the day.
The hardest part too is trying to have the owner of the business have buy-in to fix the problem. Sometimes the owner is the problem, and we've had clients like that where the owner has to be invested in change. Unless the owner is invested in change, it will always stay the same, right? But when you get an owner or a leadership team that is invested in change, it is incredible, the turnaround. How quickly you can go from being a 6-week hire to a 2-week hire, and the amount of money they're saving in not having to make a counter offer or having to pay someone more or keep somebody repays the consulting fees 10 times over, right? Like one example, if I can just give you one example, this is another thing our recruiting team does very well. We build testimonials and case studies around solutions that we solve. We have a monthly blog that we publish with the company that talks about all of these solutions that we solve and problems that we solve. We call them HR headaches, is what we call the blog. And so we had one client. And that's on our website. People can go to the blog page, and I'll give them a quick pun. Go to the blog page and read the blogs; they're all there. And one of the testimonials that your audience will see is we had a automotive company in the automotive industry that the owners were just so generous. They weren't really monitoring the clock in and clock out times of their staff. They were hourly workers. And so they just assumed that everybody was working a 40-hour work week, which they just paid everybody for a 40-hour work week. Well, we found some issues. We offer a free HR audit as a part of our way to get in with the client, where we go in and do an audit for free, 100% free. It's an hour they spend with a consultant. During that audit, we found out that their employees were really only working 30 hours a week, okay? So there was really fraud there. After we went and did the engagement, it cost them 13 grand, or our consulting fees. We uncovered $288,000 of overpayments to staff, okay? So they spent 13 grand and saved 288,000. This is 1 year, $288,000. So that's just one example where it started as a recruit to fill roles, turned into an HR cross-selling audit. We uncovered the overpayments, and they saved $288,000. They just paid for all their recruiting fees for the next 5 or 6 years from just that one saving, right? So those are just where, it was like 1,000% ROI. It was crazy. And we have a case study on it on our website. But those are just some examples where a recruit could turn into a significant saving. And now that client is like, oh my gosh, you just changed our whole business structure. So part of the solution, we put in a proper timekeeping system, added a 2-stage verification process where both the employee and the supervisor signed off that the hours are correct. It would go to leadership, then through payroll process, through to their CPA, they would run payroll. Like, we built the whole system for them for 13 grand. So that's just one example where the ROI is significant, and where now they see us as a trusted partner because of there's not just a monetary saving, but then there's the honesty factor as well.
Of course. And that's the one thing is, continuing to scale your business and, you know, getting into the next question, it kind of leads right into it. What are some of the lessons learned scaling TTG?
Delegation was probably the hardest, still always will be, I think, the hardest skill I need to learn. And I think there's twofold of an answer to that. The first one was leaving a W-2 role to be self-employed, okay, where I was the producer and built a significant book of business myself, to being all about me and what I can produce and what money I make, to now it no longer being about me. Now my job is to grow the company. So my success is not my success anymore. My success is my employees' success. That was one of the greatest lessons I ever learned from my business partner. It was incredible how he's been in business for 25 years. He said, Anthony, it's no longer about what you make or how you view yourself. It's about how the success of your employees is what now makes you successful. That was the first thing. The second thing was the power of hiring the right people and trusting them through delegation. Is it perfect? No. I think we try to do a Q&A session every quarter with every employee in the company where they get to ask leadership any question they want. And I think one of the questions from one of our salespeople to me was, how do you respond so quickly to emails, and how do you manage your time? Because they all have access to my calendar and they see I'm booked out. 6 days a week, all day, completely booked out. But they're like, well, how do you respond so quick? I'm like, because I know that there are certain tasks that are happening that are coming into me that I don't have to manage. I know that this person's going to pick it up, that person's going to pick it up. If there's an escalation, it needs to go to this person or to come to me. So I don't have to respond to every email that comes in. I know the ones that I need to respond to, which is why my response time is so good. Also, my wife, God bless her, she also came to me and said, you cannot work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. She said, you got to stop at this time. You can work early, but this is the time you stop. And by doing that, my leadership team knew that they had me up until this point. Then they had me for an extra hour past this point, but it was emergency only. So that, we really wanted to create an environment. Again, this goes back to the whole telling people to clock out, the whole remote work, telling people to take PTO. And it was the same. They wanted the same for me. We want to have that work-life balance. And so, I think those are probably the two biggest lessons I learned. Was one, that shift from W-2 to self-employed, and then two, the power of delegation and how it created a balance in everyone's work life.
You have to hold yourself accountable just like you hold your staff accountable. And
Yeah.
like you said, working all those hours, it just is not beneficial to you. And like you said, it's not beneficial to your wife because it's like, I need your time too.
Well, we have
And
four
that's the
daughters.
one thing. Oh,
Not
okay.
not just my wife. We have
Okay.
two businesses. We have TTG, and we have a real estate holding company that holds. We have a bunch of rental properties. We've always been interested in real estate. My wife is in the real estate industry. She was a escrow officer for 10 years, very successful herself. But as TTG grew, it became obvious that our children's needs grew, and it didn't make sense between the real estate company and TTG that she really worked a W-2 role for an organization. It was better for her to focus on helping to grow TTG, managing the real estate, and also managing the children. Because 13, 12, 9, and 4, and my 4-year-old is a weapon of mass destruction. Okay, like if you lose her in the house, you just follow the trail of destruction, and she's right at the end with a big old smile on her face, right? And they're incredible kids, but to your point, we have a life outside of work. And I think if it wasn't for her pushing me to remember that, even though of course you remember it, but you get so ingrained in the day to day and growing the company, you forget what's more important. And she was such a defining point in that for me, and that delegation aspect. So she really is that glue that holds everything together.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a partner in your life that can help you be stronger, be better, and still want to share your time with the kids and herself and all those type of things. It's it's nice to hear, especially
Well,
when you're such a hands-on person.
we make the joke, I may be the CEO of TTG, but I report to her. So she's the CEO of the house, and everything rolls into the house.
Of
So
course.
we're very fortunate. It's our 11-year wedding anniversary, September 20, in a couple of days, and we're very grateful to her parents, the kids' grandparents. We're going to get to go out of town for a couple of days, just us. We're very much looking forward to that.
Good.
And we've got to also, we preach the downtime for our employees, and it's very important. But we've also got to have that downtime, especially during maybe a little bit of the slower part of the year. We want to make sure that we have that time to reconnect and just be grateful for all the hard work that she does. You know, she shared a very interesting post on Facebook recently about, and I've told her this a couple of times, about how hard and how important a stay-at-home mother's role is. You know, and this probably goes to all of the working husbands that own a business, right? That may be fortunate to have a stay-at-home mother. We have to recognize that we can't do what we do without our spouses. And quite often, she works harder than I do because she works all day, and then we got the kids at night, and she doesn't really get downtime. So to be able to take her out of town for a couple of days is great. We're really looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, and that's important for you as well, is to take that time for yourself and clear your head, reconnect with her, and bring that synergy back to where it needs to be. And it's going to be amazing for you. So congratulations, and I'm glad you're taking advantage of it. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish up our podcast?
No, obviously TTG is open for business. We're a business consulting firm. We have a national reach. We can recruit at anywhere in any state of the United States. We were founded here in beautiful Corpus Christi, Texas. We are an executive search firm, an HR consulting practice, and an M&A advisory group. You can find my email address is anthonyt@ttgway.com, or you can go to www.ttgway.com to our website. There's a very interactive chatbot that you can request service through. We would love to work with you and your growing company. And Derek, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to get our name into your community, and look forward to future conversations.
Yes, it's again, this is what this is to do, is build a community that if there's any outreach needed, that we can share ideas. And that's what's most important about this is, having these different insights on how people do their business, from the M&A, the recruiting that you do, the HR aspect of it. Have talked to other companies that, do a combination of recruiting and other training or coaching programs. Knowing what's out there and can point people in the right direction is a very important thing. This is what this is about. I want to thank you for your time today. You you put your information out there already, but ttg.com for the website. Anthony's available to talk, or the chatbot. You can read the different things on their website. It's very intuitive. It's great to look at. It gives you a lot of information about Anthony himself and his growth through the business on there. So it's exciting to see that. My name is Derek Briggs with Briggs Strategy, and if you need any help with any projects, please let me know. Thanks for your time. I'll go ahead and stop there.